Hey there, friend. What's with the crazy get-up?
Could you possibly be any more helpful?
Thief is a game that holds a special place in my heart. One of the reasons I play so many of the older classics is academic curiosity about the history of games, experiencing the pioneers in a medium I call my hobby, and the other is discovering something magical like Thief. The first time I played Thief, I was entranced. The mysterious quotes at the start of the missions, the cool as ice narration by Stephen Russel as Garrett.
He'd been arrested by the Hammerites. Apparently they didn't approve of his occupation, and I doubt they approve of mine. So hopefully they'll never catch sight of me when I break him out of their prison.
And the missions that kept surprising me in different ways. The game wasn't without its problems. I found some levels downright tedious to navigate, but I was so intrigued by the world and the story, I kept going to see more of it. The mix of occult and steampunk in the first game is an amazing blend of genres that leads to Thief having a unique feel and aesthetic. And there's still very few games where I find stealth as satisfying as the Thief game, which is insane considering this was the first-person stealth game ever made. This is not really a review of Thief as much as it's me gushing about different aspects of this game that I love. Coming back to Thief 5 years after I first played it and had been around the immersive sim block so to speak, I feel like I can appreciate the game I already loved much more. Replaying it, I have gained a great fondness for how it presents its world. Before I start, here's two things I am playing with Tfix, and if you want to play Thief, it's what I would recommend too. Tfix with all options disabled and no graphics mod. Also, some parts of the footage has been brightened a bit in editing, because a lot of the game takes place in a darker environment and I prefer to keep the gamma low while playing. Thief mechanically is a pretty simple game to understand. We play as Garrett, the titular thief. Our job is to break in and rob people. Unlike most of its immersive sim peers, it has no RPG mechanics and branching character building paths. Garrett has a set way of going about his job, a job which he picked himself. Garrett is no ordinary thief. He was trained on how to move silently and hide in the shadows by the keepers, an old secret order of mysterious observers. Thief's stealth system uses both light and sound to determine how well you are sneaking around. You won't show yourself to guards itching to use their weapons on a dull ship. They will chase you down, and depending on the surface, they will hear you making noise. Quieter sounds they will pick up and sometimes ignore.
Noise stopped. Guess it was nothing.
A loud wrong step on a solid marble floor, they will not.
I hear you there!
I have no idea what point Garrett is trying to prove wearing tap dancing shoes to the marble mansion of a lord, but they reverberate loudly and send anyone present in earshot into full alert.
With me and your crow meat, Taffer boy!
The two loudest sounds in the world are Garrett's footsteps on metal and marble. This is good design though. Sound is very important in this game, and exaggerating the footstep sound makes me always keep the surface I am walking on in mind. But what makes the sound system so important is not just the sound Garrett makes, it's the sound that the enemies make. It works really well in tracking the direction the enemy is in and whether they are approaching or going the other way. The sound is the only way to know the locations of the enemies, and this system is what makes the game just engaging moment to moment. The light gem is another bit of great design. It's harder to see how much light you are in while in first person. Garrett, with his light gem and keeper's training, can pick up a good spot in a corner somewhere where he's near invisible. Though pitch black corners might not be available everywhere, and visibility and light is always a gradient. Once you get the hang of it, Thief's stealth is a simple system, but there's enough things to keep in mind while playing that it remains consistently engaging. Now, 2.5 decades later, with stealth being ubiquitous, but pure stealth games being dead, we are yet to see games even try to have a stealth system that isn't as shallow as the grave in which AAA immersive sims currently lie. That being said, there are numerous fan missions and even impressive fan campaigns being released for Thief. The Black Parade notably came out this year, and games in the indie space like Gloomwood and Fisher still carry the spirit of Thief, the Taffer soul as I like to call it. This game has so much style that even the parts that have aged carry an amount of charm to them. There's an undeniable strong artistic vision behind it all. These textures aren't thrown haphazardly around, even if the number of unique textures wasn't particularly high. Upon a base of medieval architecture, the game adds layers of weirdness. In the first level, you explore the streets and see the steampunk machinery. But next to it are the mysterious magical streetlights. The levels all have their own visual identity, like the old city being overtaken by undead which is now falling apart, the abandoned lost city with its unique architecture and lost technology. The visuals carry a sense of unease and tension between the occult and the technological progression. Most of these levels are filled with detail, the garishly decorated rooms of some lord to the comfortless halls of the Hammerite cult. The lighting system, primitive as it is, by today's standard, works well in adding depth to the visuals of the levels, as the game avoids flat lighting in most of the places. The levels will often open up in visually striking ways, and it's just another part of what makes exploration in this game so good. There are definitely aspects of Thief's presentation that have aged poorly. The enemy animations, the textures being really low res pops out when playing the game at any modern resolution. A lot of the caves just look weird with all the sharp angles and no details. And even the sound design, one of the greatest part of the game, has effects that feel a bit compressed. The game does look dated, but never really ugly. Well, except for some parts of the game. Don't worry, I will get there.
It's Taffer boy.
The game also uses a really minimalist UI. It's clear the focus was to keep the screen as clean as possible for an immersive experience, which generally works out really well for the game. The game doesn't really need to convey much using the UI, and it's easy to forget it even exists most of the time while playing the game. The hand-drawn maps also add a layer of immersion to it, as it feels like a part of the world. But one part of the minimalist UI leaves much to be desired. Like, I get not wanting menus to break immersion, but please, can we have a better way of equipping the items you need in this game, which is not shuffling through the entire inventory? It's an annoying part of playing the game that makes using items more tedious than there's any need to be. Clicking repeatedly, panicking as you hear a guard's footstep get louder and you're looking for the key.
Tombs with piped-in music. How classy.
The star of the show, however, is the sound design. Everything in Thief sounds just right. It all feels well mixed. The ambience of this game is just unmatched. Exploring old abandoned tombs or the halls of a mansion where you can hear the sound of wind cutting through everything, the crackling sounds of a burning torch, or just hearing water dripping or flowing steadily. Then there are the enemies, loudly making their presence known while moving. The halls of the mansion are filled with the sounds of the guards moving around loudly, humming, singing to themselves and whistling. The way that enemy sounds cut through everything is what completes Thief's sound design for me. A guard footstep when I am not expecting it can cause a fucking heart attack. Combined with the music, Thief just sounds amazing. Every room feels like it exists. I can close my eyes and just be there. Overall, Thief's sound design is pretty exceptional. is the reason Thief games are some of my favorite atmospheres in gaming. It is what makes Thief's world feel tangible and real. Sneaking inside a large manor in the dead of night, when it's all quiet, it fills me with a kind of excitement I can't really describe. Sound alone makes parts of the game, but Thief moves into survival horror territory, some of the scariest parts of any game I have played. In the more exploration heavy and horror focused Undead level, the sound of the game come together to make a terrifying combination. Zombies wheezing and groaning going through the caves. The Crayman's clicking sends a chill down my spine. And there's still nothing scarier than hearing a hammerhead dragging their weapon while chanting something sinister. At its best, Thief's atmosphere is downright terrifying. I love the way the missions in this game work. Missions start off with a stylish intro, a quote from the Hammerites or Keepers maybe, and then shifts into a narration by Garrett, explaining what his goal is in that particular level. All of this is followed by the Thief soundtrack, sometimes having electronic instruments play, which is just plain cool to have as music in this setting. After that, you can choose which equipment to bring in this mission, with the entire budget depending entirely upon how much loot you collected the previous mission. That's such a cool piece of design that adds an intrinsic incentive to collect the maximum amount of loot you can. Then you just take a quick glance at your objectives and you are in. And you will be in till you are done with your objectives. These objectives also depend on the difficulty you pick. Thief has a really nice way of doing its difficulty setting. Enemies are the same between the difficulty settings. They are not just buffed with higher health and higher degree of awareness. Rather, their numbers may increase, areas open up, and harder objectives in the level become essential to complete the mission. Furthermore, the higher the level of difficulty, the more Garrett's standards increase. A rookie thief might get his sword out to get out of a tough situation, but a professional never makes a mess, and murder is definitely messy. Another thing I like about Thief's gameplay is that you are truly alone in the levels. You aren't doing missions with someone constantly in your ear and tracking your movements like say in Metal Gear Solid or Splinter Cell. Garrett doesn't like having any help hindering his progress. It's just you and your equipment, the most important of which is your blackjack, used to knock out people in your way. A good way of getting rid of obstacles. As long as guards are unaware of your existence, you can knock them out. As a thief, you don't want to kill, but giving a medieval guard a concussion, that's fair game. What do you mean long-term brain trauma? They will be fine, this world has health potions. The blackjack is the most simple of your tools. You can always have it out and it doesn't slow you down, nor does it make you more likely to be seen. Unlike your sword, which fails on either front, Garrett is not helpless with a sword. He can hold his own against a guard or a zombie, but outnumbered and on enemy turf, he is at a huge disadvantage and direct confrontation is likely to get him killed. He is no warrior and the enemies can kill quickly. But Garrett has tools to make sure the situation never comes to a direct confrontation. His last weapon, his bow, is also his most versatile. It comes with fire arrows, gas arrows, water arrows, with different functionalities. The area is too bright, just shoot out the torches with a water arrow and make your way through, taking advantage of the guard's reduced vision. But if the problem is the loud surfaces, just shoot a mouse arrow and walk on that surface. moss and marble gotta be a real estate agent's nightmare. But even when spotted, you don't need to jump into combat straight up. Just blind them and run. Explore somewhere else and come back. A positive of having such huge levels is that the whole place doesn't go on full alert at once. Or you can just avoid the guard's path completely and use a rope arrow to enter places from somewhere the need of guard wasn't felt. Just find some wood, shoot, the rope rolls down and you can climb. Rope arrows are also useful for exploration, the other half of Garrett's activities in this game, reaching hard to reach area. So you gotta keep your eyes peeled for places you could use your rope arrow to get to. Thief ultimately is a game that requires patience. The large levels are easy to get lost in, and it can be hard to progress if you don't slow down and just look around. You have a compass and a map, but the maps are not always detailed, so what may look like a straight line on a map might require you to pay attention, explore, and find a new route. The maze-like level design means you will be running around in circles and getting annoyed if you aren't paying attention. Sometimes a clue may be lying around, you can miss loot lying right in front of you. Then there's waiting for the guards. You can't always just jump in and hit guards. You have to figure out whether you can quickly get away with the body once you knock out a guard. There could be someone coming just around the corner. Running around means you will often get a hammer to your face, and you need to slowly make your way and crouch walk to the guards to take them out. Or do you? One thing that kinda disappointed me on replay is that I realized the guards' hearing isn't actually that good. They will comment but not react, and you can run behind and knock them out on vast majority of the game surfaces. The guards are genuinely no threat a lot of the time, and sometimes if you are in complete darkness, the guard will walk up to you and not notice you. And it's just so easy to knock out singular guards. It's not really that big of a problem in levels with overlapping guard route, but if they both face away from you, it's so easy to knock them both out. I know they couldn't make the AI deadlier and have them be even more sensitive to everything, because first-person stealth was a new concept altogether, and the game still needs me to be careful in certain situations where I have to run away from the guards as I have caused too much chaos. Thief's levels are huge, loop realistically, and there's multiple ways to get into most of the level. Take the staircase up or parkour your way through. The way these huge thief levels spread out and keep going makes it fun to just explore and navigate. The game always surprises with its level design, and the way these large levels open up make me keen to just keep exploring. The world building and writing is exceptional, and I went out of my way to read every single book or note in this world to just learn more about the world. And sometimes what you read and the conversations you overhear can be genuinely hilarious.
Do people really pay money to see this stuff?
There's a sense of adventure in exploring this world, an excitement that comes from being in places that I am not supposed to be in, be it breaking in to rob someone or exploring a long abandoned part of a city, learning about who you are robbing or what happened in that place. A thing that Thief does that I love so much is that at the start of the missions, we generally don't start exactly at the location of our objectives, like breaking into Cragscliff prison by getting through undead-infested caves first, getting into the lost city by swimming a large distance underwater and then going through a cave system, or just a small part in the streets before entering the house of the Lord. This just does a good job of building up the location as I finally make my way inside.
Inside at last.
Garrett is skilled but often unlucky. More often than not, his plans get ruined by things he cannot control. His plans never turn out to be as simple in execution as they are on paper. Something has to fuck it up. So, the missions in Thief often evolve in unexpected ways, which means the objectives he has at the start of the missions are almost never the same as what he does by the end. He will be ready with a map, make his way through a cave to loot a chest, and then realize that the chest is empty and he has to look someplace else entirely. And this is just one example. Sometimes in the levels you have to deal with the type of enemies you are not expecting, like running into mages in the later parts of Lost City after not seeing a single human the entire mission. The game also keeps introducing new enemy types periodically. Figuring out how they work is another huge part of the missions they're in, and they are pretty different to deal with. You can't really knock out the undead, so the places they inhabit are much harder to explore with these reanimated corpses constantly chasing you. And while direct confrontation with groups of them can be pretty deadly, so you find a better solution. But not all missions are fun adventures. Some missions have too high of a loot requirement, so I found myself getting a bit annoyed at the tail end. Running around the whole level after knocking everyone out is the most boring part and pretty frustrating too. Even if most of the mission is otherwise great, this kinda serves the ending for me. And then there's Thieves Guild. This mission feels like it gives me dementia. Semi-looking corridors in an ugly level, sewers connecting in a confusing mess. This is what Thief's supposed to feel like if you don't pay attention. But this mission won't help even if you do. It breaks the flow of the story. The whole thing feels like playing a game while having a migraine. Even besides that, the enemy AI is borked in this level.
I'm getting too jumpy.
This mission always takes me the longest to complete, as the way some pieces of loot are hidden is pretty bullshit. Another level with egregious backtracking is Return to Haunted Cathedral. The start of this level is the most terrifying 15 to 20 minutes in the game, but then you are sent to do side quests, back through areas you have already been through, killing the hammerheads, at which point it was not terrifying but annoying. Familiarity is the enemy of fear, and I was way too familiar to be scared by the end of this chore. And this isn't even the only time the game gives you a kill objective. Combat in Thief isn't particularly good or fun, so these are always the low points. In general, Thief's gameplay in the last parts of the game is not particularly strong, but the story had me engaged enough to just keep going. The plot of Thief takes a bit to get going. The first few levels work best in setting up the world, and specifically Garrett and who he is, his origin with the Keepers, and how he came to be what he is. Garrett isn't the typical video game hero. He is a pretty self-interested man, often cynical and sarcastic. He won't go out of his way to harm anyone, but he enjoys being a thief and is good at it. There is no virtuous purpose to his profession, uninterested in the hard ideals and responsibilities that the Keepers talk about. He's a loner who doesn't like cooperating with others and even less being pushed around by others. Garrett feels real and is grounded. It's easy to laugh with him when he mocks the vanity of the local lord.
It's a throne room. How pretentious can you get?
The start of the game also shows the city and its inhabitants, steeped with crime and greed. It sets up the Hammerites, one of the more powerful factions in this world, who are part of how the city is run, a group of religious zealots following their god, the Master Builder, and the undead that have overtaken areas abandoned by the living, showing the most supernatural aspects of the setting at work. The main story starts with Garrett being given a job by Victoria. He has to steal a sword from a mysterious and eccentric nobleman, Constantine. There's a few problems. Garrett couldn't get a good map of the inside of Constantine's mansion. But still, he has robbed rich noblemen before. On paper, it should be an easy job. It starts normal and then... Remember when I said it is never as simple as it first seems? The deeper we go into the level, the weirder it gets. To the point that when Garrett gets the sword, it just says this.
Time to take my new sword and get out of this crazy place.
And when it's time for payment for that sword,
a refreshment, Mr. Garrett. I'm in the possession of a superior brandy that has the most restorative effect.
I prefer my payment in cash, not liquor, Mr.
My apologies. I've been watching you, Mr. Garrett, so closely, in fact, that I'm afraid I'd forgotten we haven't actually met yet. I am Constantine.
All this time I thought you were gonna pay me. You've brought me here to kill me?
But you have it all wrong, Mr. Garrett. Would it surprise you to know that it was I who hired you to steal my own sword? Yes. You see, Victoria and I are...
Old associates.
Yes. You were being tested, do you understand? And I must say you more than live up to your reputation. You are quite an extraordinary thief.
Testing me? What is it you want from me, Constantine?
I am a collector, Mr. Garrett. But there are some items that are not available for purchase. They must be acquired using other means. In this case, the item in question would be best acquired by thieving. Not simple thieving. No. I need an artist like yourself.
What exactly is this item?
It is the gemstone called the Eye, for its unusual
Appearance.
Yes. Kept hidden in the sealed cathedral deep inside the halls of the scum Hammerites. Oh, but forgive me. You are possibly friendly with the Order of the Hammer.
No. Fanatics make unreliable friends.
Excellent. I am prepared to offer you quite a sum. 100,000 upon receipt of the Eye.
I don't see how I can refuse such an offer.
Marvelous. Victoria can fill you in on all the particulars. And Mr. Garrett, the sword, keep it. You have earned it, but also, I believe you'll find it useful in your quest.
so Garrett goes to retrieve the eye, the warning signs blurred by the massive rewards Constantine promises, where he learns that the eye was locked away by the keepers, another red flag, but Garrett manages to retrieve it and brings it to Constantine. But apparently it's broken.
To sound ungrateful, but this eye is completely blind.
It's a rock. It's what you asked for. Am I gonna get paid or not?
Of course. Victoria, are you prepared to give Mr. Garrett his compensation?
Bow to the woodsy lord, and offer up your flesh eye so that his eye of stone may see, man fool. Bids he then the spruces to singer him in antlers, and the woodsy lord binders them fleshes to stone.
Did you think those ancient phrases were mere words, man fool? Look at me! I am the woodsy lord, the trickster of legend. If you be thirsty, flesh thing, drink of me. If you be hungry, then feed, for I am the honeymaker and the juxberry.
He am the leaf that feeders on the fleshed ones, thems that calls themselves builders, and wielded up a hammers against him.
My poor Mr. Garrett, you will not live to see the sprawling glory of it. Your sacrifice is not yet complete. 9 lilacs and 9 thistleades must feed and die. Stands he then in the greens and fested maw, and speeds he out his judgments upon the weeps and writhing manfolds.
Garrett has the reaction most of us would have in this situation. Down in eye and trembling, he faints. He saw an evil god unleashed in front of him and was there helpless. The prophecies of the keepers, the stories of the woodsy lords, and the paintings weren't mere mood builders. They were pointing out that the trickster is very real, and now Garrett lies in the trickster's hand. He was finally freed by the keepers. It's clear that they knew what was going on. Constantine didn't need to kill Garrett now that he has the eye, but he is a jealous being. Can't forgive Garrett for doing something he could not. Garrett was back in the mansion, but this time it wasn't guards patrolling the hallways. It was beasts that aren't a part of this world. Garrett manages to escape and realizes he can't win against Constantine alone, so he decides to take the help of the hammers. Constantine had already thought of that, but Garrett manages to save the Hammerite High Priest. And then it's time for the final showdown, which is kind of a letdown. Here Garrett swaps the eye for a counterfeit one in a somewhat easy stealth section, which finally ends the trickster's short but deadly reign of terror.
Keepers.
So you think you've won?
I think I've got my eye back.
Yet still, you are blind.
If you hadn't noticed, I just saved the world, yourself included.
As we knew you would. As it had to be.
The keepers are such smug cunts, man. I'm glad Garrett left.
I will tell them this. Nothing has changed. All is as it was written. The trickster is dead. Beware the dawn of the Metal Age.
Thief is a classic and one of the most influential PC games of all time. And even now, there isn't anything quite like the first two Thief games. It is one of my all-time favorites and is a series that has shaped parts of what I love in games. This game has also aged incredibly well. Sure, it won't hold your hand at all, but the general controls, the stealth system, the story, and the voice acting makes Thief just feel good to play and experience. I would recommend this game to anyone with a tolerance for the older titles. There's a reason Thief still has an active community which adores this game. I'm off to play the Black Parade now.